Good morning, everyone. I'm Poppy Harlow.
And I'm John Berman. Breaking news, staff changes at the White House. This is CNN has new exclusive reporting that Russian officials discussed having potentially derogatory information about President Trump and his top aides during the campaign.
And this morning, the White House is pushing back, calling this a, quote, another round of false and unverified claims to, quote, smear the president. All of this is happening as the president's son-in-law and his senior advisor, Jared Kushner, faces increased scrutiny over his ties to a Russian banking executive, someone with a direct line to Vladimir Putin. Let's go to our chief national security correspondent, Jim Sciutto, who is working on this and broke this story with his team overnight. Jim, what have you learned?
Good morning, John and Poppy. Two former intelligence officials and a congressional source tell myself, Pamela Brown, and Dana Bash that Russian government officials discuss having potentially, quote, derogatory information about then-presidential candidate Donald Trump, as well as some of his top aides. This in conversations intercepted by U.S. intelligence during the 2016 election. One source described the information as financial in nature and said the discussion centered around whether the Russians had leverage with Trump's inner circle. The source says the intercepted communications suggested to U.S. intelligence that Russians believed, quote, they had the ability to influence the administration through the derogatory information. Now, the sources privy to the descriptions of these communications written by U.S. intelligence cautioned that the Russian claims to each other could have been exaggerated, even made up. The details of the communications, though, still shed new light on information U.S. intelligence received about Russian claims of influence. The contents of the conversations making clear to U.S. officials that Russia was considering ways to influence the election, even if their claims turn out to be false. As you may remember, CNN first reported the U.S. intercepted discussions of Russian officials bragging about cultivating relationships with Trump campaign aides, including his first national security advisor, Michael Flynn. All this to influence Trump himself. Following that CNN report, the New York Times said that Trump's campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, was also among those discussed.
Jim, this derogatory information, any sense of who exactly the Russians were talking about here?
Well, the president himself, beyond the president himself, none of the sources would say which specific Trump aides were discussed. One of the officials said the intelligence report masked the American names, kept them hidden, but it was clear the conversations revolved around the Trump campaign team. Another source would not give specifics, citing the classified nature of the information discussed. Asked for comment, the White House told CNN overnight the following, quote, this is yet another round of false and unverified claims made by anonymous sources to smear the president. The reality is a review of the president's income from the last 10 years showed that he had virtually no financial ties at all. There appears to be no limit to which the president's political opponents will go to perpetuate this false narrative, including illegally leaking classified material. All this does is play into the hands of our adversaries and put our country at risk, end quote. The Office of Director of National Intelligence, the FBI, they would not comment to CNN. The president himself has said in public many times that he has no financial dealings with Russia.
So, Jim, do we know if this, specifically, you're reporting, if this is part of the current investigation that is underway led by Special Counsel Bob Mueller?
Well, here's what we know. The FBI investigation into Russian meddling in the U.S. election, that's the big picture topic, which was recently taken over by the special counsel, Robert Mueller, includes seeking answers to questions as to whether there was any coordination, collusion with associates of Trump, and also examining alleged financial dealings of key Trump associates. The FBI would not comment on whether any of the claims discussed in the intercepts we've reported have been verified. I should note that by the time Trump took office, though, questions about some of his aides' financial dealings with Russian entities, those were already under investigation. So, John and Poppy, many threads here that are still a subject of investigation, FBI, House, and Senate intelligence committees. The newest information in our reporting is that Russians were bragging to each other, claiming that they had derogatory information on Trump and his aides. Not verified or finalized, or no conclusion reached yet, but still an open line of investigation.
Jim Sciutto, stick around. Don't go anywhere. We have a lot more questions for you. In the meantime, also new this morning, the New York Times reports investigators are looking into a meeting between President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and a Russian banking executive. Want to bring in CNN senior Washington correspondent Joe Johns at the White House. Joe, what's the latest here?
Good morning, John. Well, the latest is we're talking about Jared Kushner here, the president's son-in-law and senior advisor here at the White House. CNN is told that despite all the controversy that's going on right now, Jared Kushner does not intend to give up any of his vast portfolio of issues he handles, including Middle East peace, streamlining government. The source tells CNN's Jim Acosta Kushner has a strong team around him working on every part of his portfolio. That said, this controversy centering on Jared Kushner continues apparently to expand. The New York Times reporting this morning that investigators are looking closely at his contacts in December of last year with a Russian banker, a very well-known Russian banker, and that is Sergei Gorkov. These conversations getting a lot more scrutiny right now. The question, of course, whether he was trying to set up a back channel and what that back channel would have been for to communicate with Moscow. This is including also the conversations that he apparently had with the Russian ambassador to the United States, Sergei Kislyak. Investigators wanting to know more about those conversations as well. Jared Kushner, for his part, has been keeping a low profile with his wife, Ivanka Trump, and he has sent the message, however, through his attorneys that he's willing to sit down and explain everything about these conversations. Of course, one of those possible explanations is the back channel. But we are told, and we have been told here at CNN for some time, CNN's Gloria Borger, that one of the possible explanations that some people around Kushner are putting out is that it was the Russians looking for a back channel in order to talk to the president's national security advisor about Syria. Who knows? Back to you.
It'd be good to hear from Jared Kushner directly to answer that question.